still check my rearview mirror every 10 seconds, even when I am parked in my own driveway. There is a specific kind of cold that hits your stomach when you realize the headlights behind you aren't just passing through. They are hunting. If you think you are safe just because the road is empty, you are wrong. That is exactly when they want you alone. I don't drive at night anymore, and after you hear this, you probably won't either. It was late October of 2019. I was 22 at the time, making the long drive from Phoenix back to my parents' house in northern Nevada. I was trying to save money, so instead of staying at a motel, I decided to power through the night. I was driving a 2008 Honda Civic that had seen better days, rattling its way up a stretch of Highway 93. If you have never driven that road, you need to understand something. It is pitch black. There are no streetlights, no houses, and for stretches of 50 or 60 miles, there is absolutely zero cell service. Around 2:30 in the morning, my gas light dinged. I pulled into this tiny, ancient service station that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 70s. The fluorescent lights overhead were buzzing loud enough to give me a headache. I was the only car there. I filled up, went inside to grab a stale coffee and use the bathroom, and hurried back out. The silence of the desert felt heavy, like the air was too thick. As I was screwing the gas cap back on, I saw another vehicle pull in. It was a dark blue lifted pickup truck. It didn't pull up to a pump. It just parked in the shadows near the air compressor, idling. I couldn't see the driver through the tint. I got a bad feeling immediately, that primal instinct that screams at you to leave. I jumped in my car, locked the doors, and peeled out of there a little faster than I should have. I got back on the main highway, heart beating a little fast, telling myself I was being paranoid. I turned up the radio to drown out the silence. About 10 minutes later, I saw headlights in my rearview mirror. They were far back, just 2 pinpricks of light. I didn't think much of it until I realized they were closing the distance fast. I was doing 75. This guy must have been doing 90. Within a minute, the truck was right on my bumper. It was the same dark blue pickup from the gas station. His high beams flooded my car, blinding me in the mirrors. I squinted, flipping my rearview tab to dim the glare. I thought he was just an impatient jerk, so I eased off the gas and drifted toward the shoulder to let him pass. He didn't pass. He slowed down right with me. I sped up back to 75. He matched me instantly. My hands started to sweat on the steering wheel. I was 50 miles from the nearest town. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but just as I feared, the signal bars were empty. No service stared back at me. Panic started to set in, but I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he thought I was someone else. Then he did something that made my blood freeze. He killed his headlights. 1 second, the cabin was flooded with light. The next, I was in total darkness, staring at the black void in my mirror. I couldn't tell where he was. Was he still behind me? Did he turn off? I kept driving, my eyes straining, waiting for an impact. For 3 minutes, nothing happened. I started to let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Maybe he had turned onto a dirt road. Suddenly, a massive thud shook my car. My head slammed back against the headrest. He had driven up behind me in the dark, without lights, and rammed my bumper at 70 miles per hour. I screamed, fighting to keep the car straight. The truck's lights flashed back on, blindingly bright, and he hit me again. Harder this time. The sound of metal crunching on metal was sickening. He wasn't trying to pass me. He was trying to run me off the road. I floored it. My poor Honda was shaking violently as I pushed it to 85, then 90. The truck stayed glued to me. Every time I looked in the mirror, I could see the silhouette of the massive grill guard inches from my trunk. This went on for 20 miles. 20 miles of pure terror. Every time I tried to slow down for a curve, he would tap my bumper, threatening to send me spinning into the desert scrub. I was crying, begging for a police car or another driver, but the highway was dead. Then the truck shifted lanes. He pulled up alongside me in the left lane. I refused to look over. I didn't want to see who was doing this. I just kept my eyes on the road, praying my engine wouldn't blow up. But he didn't ram me from the side. He stayed perfectly parallel with me. I finally glanced over. The window was down. A man was screaming at me. He was pointing frantically. I couldn't hear him over the wind and the engines, but his face wasn't angry. It was terrified. He was pointing at my car, not at me, but behind me. I looked back at the road, confused. Was something wrong with my tires? The truck swerved hard, cutting in front of me and slamming on the brakes. I had no choice. I slammed on my brakes too, tires screeching, smoke filling the air. We both came to a stop in the middle of the empty highway. I was about to throw the car in reverse and get out of there, assuming this was the trap. But the truck driver was already out of his vehicle. He was a big guy wearing a flannel shirt, and he was holding a tire iron. He didn't come to my door. He ran to the back of my car. He smashed my back passenger window with the tire iron. I screamed, "What are you doing?" He reached through the broken glass, unlocked the back door, and ripped it open. He grabbed someone from the floor of my back seat and threw them onto the pavement. A man dressed in all black scrambled up from the asphalt. He had a knife in his hand. My brain couldn't process it. There had been a man hiding on the floor of my back seat for 50 miles. The truck driver raised the tire iron, yelling at the stranger to stay down. The man in black looked at me, then at the truck driver, and then bolted. He sprinted off the road, disappearing into the pitch-black desert night. I sat there, frozen, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. The truck driver walked over to my window, breathing heavy. He looked shaken. "You okay, kid?" he asked. His voice was trembling. I thought you were trying to kill me," I stuttered. "I saw him," the man said, wiping sweat from his forehead. gas station. You went inside to pay. I saw that guy open your back door and slide under the seats. I didn't have time to stop him before you came back out. He pointed toward the endless dark desert where the man had run. I was flashing my lights to get you to pull over. When you wouldn't stop, I saw his head pop up. He was sitting up right behind you. He had that knife ready. I had to hit you. I had to get you to stop before he slit your throat. We waited there for an hour until a state trooper finally came by. They searched the desert for 3 days with dogs and helicopters, but they never found the man in black. They did find a roll of duct tape and a pack of zip ties left behind on the floor of my back seat. The police told me that if the truck driver hadn't followed me, I probably wouldn't have made it to the state line. I would have been just another missing person poster at a rest stop. I sold that car a week later. I couldn't stand to look at the back seat anymore. I still have nightmares about the moment I looked in the rearview mirror, thinking the danger was behind me, while the real horror was breathing down my neck, waiting for the right moment to strike. So the next time you are driving alone at night and you see headlights following you a little too closely, don't just assume they are trying to hurt you. They might be the only thing stopping the monster already inside your car. You know that feeling when you're in a public bathroom, totally vulnerable, and you hear the main door open. Your stomach just drops, right? You freeze up, hoping whoever it is just does their business and leaves. But sometimes they don't leave. Sometimes they just stand there and you realize they aren't there for the bathroom. They're there for you. This happened back in 2018. My name is David, and I was driving solo from Chicago down to St. Louis for a friend's wedding. I'd left way too late, and by 2:00 a.m., I was fighting a losing battle against highway hypnosis on a dead stretch of I-55. It's just miles of cornfields and darkness out there. My bladder was screaming at me. So when I saw the blue sign for a rest area, I didn't think twice. I pulled off the highway. The parking lot was vast and completely empty, bathed in those eerie orange sodium vapor lights that make everything look sickly. There wasn't another car or semi-truck in sight. Just me and a concrete building sitting in the dark. I parked right in front, left my car running force of habit when I'm nervous, and jogged inside. The building was chilly and smelled intensely of industrial cleaner trying to mask decades of stale urine. The silence was heavy. The only sound was the loud, angry buzzing of a fluorescent light flickering above the sinks. I went into the second stall from the end. I latched the door, and honestly, I just wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. The vibe was all wrong. You know how sometimes you walk into a place and your skin just starts crawling for no obvious reason? It was like that. I was just finishing up, buckling my belt, when I heard it. The heavy metal door to the restroom squeaked open slowly, then slammed shut with a bang that echoed off the tile walls. I froze. I hadn't heard a car pull up outside. I hadn't heard footsteps on the pavement. My breath caught in my throat. I stood perfectly still in the stall, staring at the gap between the door and the frame. Heavy footsteps walked across the echoing floor. Clomp, clomp, clomp. They weren't hurried. They were deliberate. They walked past the sinks, past the urinals, and stopped right in front of my stall door. I could see their shadow stretching under the door. I held my breath, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought they'd hear it. I looked down at the gap under the stall divider. I saw a pair of boots. They were old, caked in dried mud, the leather cracked and worn. And they were huge. I waited for them to move to the next stall, or to the urinal, or do anything normal people do in a bathroom. But the boots didn't move. The person just stood there, facing my stall door, inches away. A minute passed. It felt like an hour. The silence in that bathroom was deafening, broken only by that damn buzzing light and my own blood rushing in my ears. Why were they just standing there? Then I heard breathing. It was slow, deep, and wet, like someone with a chest cold trying to be quiet. My mind was racing. I didn't have anything on me to defend myself. My phone was in my back pocket, useless. I ran through every scenario. If I kicked the door open, would I knock them down? If I screamed, would anyone even hear me out here in this black void? The boots shifted slightly. The leather creaked. Then a knuckle rapped gently on my stall door. Tap, tap, tap. I flinched so hard, I almost hit the wall. I didn't say anything. I prayed they'd think the stall was empty, even though it was locked from the inside. A pause, then harder this time. Bang, bang, bang. The door rattled violently in the frame. I scrambled backward, pressing my back against the cold, tiled wall of the stall, my eyes wide in the dim light. Hey, a voice rasped from the other side. It sounded dry, like sandpaper on concrete. You got any toilet paper in there? The question was so normal, but the tone was terrifying. It was devoid of any emotion. It sounded flat, dead. No, sorry, I managed to squeak out. My voice sounded thin and pathetic. Liar, the voice whispered, right up against the crack of the door. My blood ran cold. I saw the doorknob to my stall begin to slowly, agonizingly turn. The cheap metal latch strained against the frame. They were trying to get in. Panic took over. Pure, animalistic fight or flight kicked in. I wasn't going to wait in this metal box to find out what this psycho wanted. I braced myself against the back wall, lifted my foot, and kicked the stall door with everything I had, right at the latch. With a loud crack, the latch gave way, and the door flew outward. I burst out of the stall, fists raised, ready to fight for my life. The bathroom was empty. I spun around wildly. The muddy boots were gone. The urinals were empty. The main door to the restroom was swinging slowly shut, the hydraulic closer, hissing. I didn't stop to process it. I bolted. I ran out of that bathroom faster than I've ever run in my life. The cold night air hit my face as I sprinted toward my car. Thank God I'd left it running. I threw myself into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and locked it in one motion. I threw it into reverse, tires screeching on the empty pavement, and peeled out of that rest stop doing 60 before I even hit the on-ramp. I drove for an hour with my knuckles white on the steering wheel, constantly checking the rearview mirror, expecting to see headlights bearing down on me. But there was nothing. I didn't stop again until I hit St. Louis. I pulled into a brightly lit 24-hour diner. I needed coffee and people. I was still shaking. As I was getting out of my car, some trash fell out of the passenger side footwell. I leaned down to pick it up. It was a crumpled up fast food napkin. It wasn't mine. I hadn't eaten fast food on this trip. I unfolded it slowly. Written on the napkin in what looked like charcoal or burnt wood was a message. It was jagged and messy. It said, "I almost had you." I don't know how that napkin got in my car. I don't know if the guy broke in while I was inside, or if he was hiding in the backseat the whole time I was driving down from Chicago, just waiting for me to stop. I never saw his face, but I still can't use a public bathroom if I'm the only one in there. I just can't do it. You know that rule everyone tells you when you start driving? Never, ever pick up hitchhikers. I always thought it was just something parents said to scare you, like waiting an hour to swim after eating. I thought the worst that could happen was an awkward conversation, or maybe getting robbed. I was wrong. I know now that there are things on the road much worse than robbers. Some people out there aren't looking for a ride. They're just looking for someone to witness their nightmare. This happened last month. My name's Mark, and I was doing the long, brutal drive from Chicago to LA for a new job. I was driving in 08 Honda that had seen better days. And to save money on tolls, I decided to take a long stretch of the old historic route, 66, through Arizona. It was a mistake. By 11 at night, I was deep in the desert. There were no streetlights, just an endless expanse of scrub brush and black pavement, illuminated by my weak high beams. My phone had lost service an hour ago, and the only thing on the radio was static that occasionally sounded like whispering. I was tired, my eyes burning from staring at the lines on the road. I was desperate for any sign of civilization. That's when I saw him. My headlights caught a figure standing on the gravel shoulder. He was just standing there, thumb out, not moving a muscle. He looked normal enough, maybe 25 years old, wearing a faded denim jacket and jeans, holding a small canvas duffel bag. He didn't look menacing. He just looked pathetic out there in the middle of nowhere, against every instinct I had, and honestly just wanting another human being to break the oppressive silence. I slowed down. I pulled onto the shoulder a few yards ahead of him. I unlocked the passenger door. He walked up slowly and climbed in. The dome light flickered on for a second, and I got a good look at his face. He was pale, like he hadn't seen the sun in weeks, and his eyes were deeply shadowed. "Thanks," he muttered. His voice was flat, devoid of any emotion. As soon as he shut the door, the air in the car changed. It instantly felt 20 degrees colder. And there was a smell. It was faint at first, but it grew stronger. It smelled like old pennies, that sharp, metallic tang of copper. I pulled back onto the road, my heart already starting to beat a little faster. "Where you headed?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He didn't look at me. He just stared straight ahead through the windshield at the encroaching darkness. "Just up ahead," he said. "The Oasis Motel." I frowned. I hadn't passed a town in 40 miles, and I hadn't seen a billboard for a motel in even longer. "I don't think there's anything out here for a long while, man." He slowly turned his head to look at me. His eyes were wide in the dim light from the dashboard, the pupils blown out wildly. "It's there," he whispered. He promised he'd wait for me at the Oasis. A chill that had nothing to do with the AC crawled up my spine. Who promised? He looked back at the road. The man in the big truck. He said if I got to the Oasis, I'd be safe. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. The metallic smell was getting suffocating now, mixing with something else. Something sickly sweet, like spoiled meat. "Look, buddy," I said, my voice shaking a little. "I think you're confused. There's no truck out here." We drove for another 10 minutes in agonizing silence. Every few seconds, I'd steal a glance at him. He hadn't moved. He wasn't blinking. He was just staring. Then he started muttering to himself. It was a low, frantic chant. "Almost there. Almost there. Don't let him see me. Almost there." "Hey, are you okay?" I asked, genuinely terrified now. I was getting ready to pull over and kick him out. Safety be damned. Suddenly, he lunged toward the dashboard, slamming his hands against the glass and screaming, "Watch out. The truck. He's gonna hit US." I slammed on the brakes in a panic, swerving hard. The car skidded on the asphalt, tires screeching, before coming to a stop half on the dirt shoulder. My heart was in my throat. I looked around wildly. The road was completely empty in both directions. There was no truck. I turned to the hitchhiker, ready to scream at him, to demand what his problem was. But the words died in my throat. The dome light had flickered on again when we stopped. The guy in the denim jacket was still sitting there, but he wasn't right. The side of his head, the side facing the windshield where he'd been staring, was just gone. It was caved in a horrific mess of matted hair, bone, and dark, wet blood. His denim jacket was soaked on that side, and he was still staring straight ahead, oblivious to the catastrophic injury, repeating in that flat voice. He promised he'd wait. The Oasis. He promised. I screamed. I scrambled for the door handle, practically falling out of the car onto the dirt. I ran around to the passenger side, adrenaline surging through me, and ripped the door open. "Get out," I yelled my voice cracking. "Get the hell out of my car." He didn't react. It was like I wasn't even there. I reached in to grab his arm, to physically drag him out of my vehicle. My hand passed right through his shoulder. It was like sticking my hand into freezer water. The cold was shocking, painful. I stumbled back, hyperventilating. As I watched, his form started to flicker, like bad reception on an old television set. He turned his ruined head toward me one last time. His eyes were sad, terrified. Then he just faded away, gone. The only thing left in the passenger seat was a damp stain on the upholstery and the overwhelming stench of blood. I drove the rest of the night doing 90, shaking so hard I could barely keep the car on the road. I didn't stop until the sun came up and I hit a major town. I found a diner and sat in a booth, staring at a coffee I couldn't drink. An old waitress saw how shook up I was and asked if I was okay. I ended up spilling the whole story to her, feeling like a crazy person. She didn't look surprised. She just nodded sadly. "You were out near mile marker 142, she said quietly. "Saw the kid in the denim jacket. Huh. Yeah. He died back in 98. A hit-and-run trucker clipped him out there. They say he was trying to get to the old Oasis Motel right before it burned down. Poor thing just keeps trying to catch a ride to a place that doesn't exist anymore. I sold that car a week later. I couldn't stand the smell in the passenger seat. No amount of cleaning could get it out. So yeah, listen to the advice. Don't pick up hitchhikers, especially on those lonely old roads. Because the scariest thing isn't that they might want to hurt you. It's that they might already be dead, and they just want company while they relive the worst night of their lives.